An election engendered historic change, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 can't stop Ron from landslide heaven. Heart and soul and the royally droll. Never say never, and enough is enough. Terror seeks passage to India, and an aristocrat passage to freedom. When getting hung up on sizing down really means who you gonna call, and they happily answer. In the year Tinseltown scaled new highs and splashy new depths. So on with the glove and out with the attitude for a material whirl at life, liberty, and the pursuit of things trivial. 1984 next on Year by Year.
Hello, I'm Karen Stone, and this is Year by Year. Let's go back to 1984, a year marked by fierce patriotism at home and by conflict and bloodshed abroad. Indians bid farewell to the mother of their country. Klaus von Bülow won the right to a new trial. Madonna sashayed her way into the hearts of teenagers. A subway vigilante struck a chord with crime-weary New Yorkers. And Saddam Hussein used weapons of war against his own people. Back home, the Reagan Revolution continued as President Reagan captured a second term, but not before the Democratic Party made history by putting the first woman on a presidential ticket. This is Year by Year, 1984.
It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better.
Ronald Reagan began the fourth year of his feel-good presidency in 1984, and he was running unopposed for the Republican Party's nomination.
I think that our president articulates the greatness of this nation, and he is leading it well, and the American people just feel good about that.
With an eye on perfecting the nation and on the White House, 8 Democrats fought to take on the popular President Reagan.
I am announcing today I am a candidate
for President of the United States of America.
I have the experience.
This is one of the most important days of my life.
I have given this decision long and careful consideration.
I believe that I am ready now
to seek the nomination of the Democratic Party for the presidency of the United States of America.
The Democrats were in the uncomfortable position of having to attack what seemed to be a dramatic economic recovery.
Now Ronald Reagan says the economy is moving up. It is, up on a mountain of debt and record Reagan deficits.
After criticizing high deficits, high military spending, and tax cuts for the wealthy, the candidates proposed their own expanded version of the American dream. Each promised that if he became president, more Americans would share the nation's wealth.
It can only be done. Human race.
Jesse Jackson hoped to inspire the lower and working classes and coined the term Rainbow Coalition to describe his diverse base of support.
Red, yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious. In God's sight, everybody is somebody.
Senator Gary Hart built his campaign on a foundation of youthful student volunteers and promised them new ideas.
We want new directions and a new vision. New ideas are the heartbeat of this nation's future.
And former Vice President Walter Mondale, regarded as a Liberal Party man and a shoo-in for the nomination, played on his experience in the White House.
I know the American people, and I am ready to be President of the United States.
As expected, with the backing of labor unions, Mondale won big in the Iowa caucuses. Then in the first primary election in New Hampshire, a Gary Hart victory surprised everyone, except Gary Hart.
Tonight in New Hampshire, we buried the label Dark Horse.
The win catapulted Hart to the position of serious contender. This blow to the Mondale campaign changed the dynamics of the race for the rest of the primary season and turned a sprint into a marathon.
I think it's fair to say that in New Hampshire, I didn't discriminate against any group. I did poorly across the board. And I don't want to pick on anybody and single them out. It was a bummer, and I know it.
The Democratic primary race went down to the wire. Though Jesse Jackson's only win was meager, the District of Columbia, he refused to leave the contest and proved a political force to be reckoned with. Hart came on strong with young urban professionals, the so-called yuppies. Mondale held the Democratic establishment. At the Democratic National Convention in San Francisco, Mondale arrived with the necessary delegates to assure his party's nomination for president. The bitter differences from the primaries were finally put aside. The gathering opened with emotional oratory by the keynote speaker, New York's Governor Mario Cuomo.
We believe as Democrats that a society as blessed as ours, the most affluent democracy in the world's history, one that can spend trillions on instruments of destruction, ought to be able to help the middle class in its struggle, ought to be able to find work for all who can do it, room at the table, shelter for the homeless, care for the elderly and infirm, and hope for the destitute.
Cuomo achieved national recognition as the result of this speech. He set the stage for Jesse Jackson's prime time address, which solidified his newfound prominence in the party.
If blacks vote in great numbers, progressive whites win. It's the only way progressive whites win. If blacks vote in great numbers, Hispanics win. When blacks, Hispanics, and progressive whites vote, women win. When women win, children win. When women and children win, workers win. We must all